I never imagined that a Saturday afternoon zucchini bake-off could lead to sirens screaming down Maplewood Lane. But when HOA Karen stormed onto my porch accusing me of illegally painting my mailbox neon orange, she didn't know the weight of her mistake until she saw the sheriff's badge glinting on his belt. The moment her phone slid from her perfectly manicured fingers and hit the pavement, I sensed a reckoning was coming. My heart pounded with a rush of vindication as I watched her face go from smug triumph to colorless dread. This was her greatest humiliation, and it was just beginning. The air crackled with tension as neighbors peered from behind lace curtains, clutching iced teas and rubber-gloved dessert spoons, anticipating the fireworks. I stood tall in the soft glow of the late afternoon sun, my hands folded calmly across my chest, knowing that truth and loyalty would win the day. HOA Karen had spent months cultivating her image as the self-appointed guardian of curb appeal, policing flowerbeds and flagpoles with fanatical zeal. Rumor had it she once fined a widowed veteran for installing a birdbath that clashed with the community's pastel hues. So when she accused me of flouting the neighborhood covenants by a mere mailbox color choice, I recognized her move as a petty power play meant to publicly shame and control. But behind her high-pitched tirade lay a deeper fear she refused to acknowledge, a fear that my father's legacy as the county's longest-serving sheriff would eclipse her hollow authority. I remembered the day he pinned the silver star on my chest when I joined his department. "Carry this badge with honor," he said, and I vowed I always would. Little did I know that promise would serve me most when confronted by her irrational wrath. The truth behind my mailbox was simple. I had lost my mother to breast cancer 3 years ago, and she loved that shade of neon orange for its warmth and boldness. Painting the mailbox had been my way to honor her memory each dawn when the sun kissed the letter slot. Karen's complaint threatened to turn my tribute into a violation. Neighbors who had once exchanged polite nods at community barbecues now whispered behind my back, unsure which side to take. But as soon as Karen's demand for law enforcement played out in a vociferous voicemail, I knew exactly whose side certainty lay with. The confrontation reached its crescendo when the sheriff's cruisers rounded the corner in thunderous formation. I froze for a heartbeat, expecting reprimand, until the lead officer stepped out briskly, tall and steady, his uniform crisp. His face was set in a familiar stern but protective expression I knew too well. It was my father. Karen's lips parted in disbelief as the realization washed over her puffed cheeks. She had summoned not a faceless deputy but the very man responsible for upholding justice and mercy in this county. For a moment the entire neighborhood held its breath, the only sound the low hum of cicadas surveying the unfolding drama. My father approached with measured steps, eyes locked on Karen's trembling figure. Without a word, he produced his badge emblazoned with the county seal and decades of unwavering service. Karen's own phone call crackled out her last plea for reinforcement. "Please hurry, it's harassment." But before any further words were exchanged, my father raised a hand. In that instant I felt a swell of pride so fierce it stung my eyes. He was not just a figurehead of law and order, he was my protector, my guide, and now the instrument of Karen's own bitter pill. In the ensuing hush, he calmly explained that my mailbox color was within my rights, and that her complaint held no legal merit. Karen's voice quivered as she tried to interject, but each attempt was met with a polite yet unyielding rebuttal. I watched her face blanch as he detailed community guidelines she had twisted for personal vendettas while simultaneously reminding her that respect and compassion formed the true foundation of neighborhood harmony. As the wind stirred the leaves overhead, Karen's shoulders sagged and the sharp edge of her aura dulled. The gathering crowd shifted, casting sideways glances now laced with sympathy for me and a dawning pity for her. A sudden twist shattered the illusion of a simple HOA drama. Mrs. Delgado, the elderly widow who lived 2 houses down, famous for her chain of mismatched wind chimes, stepped forward clutching a stack of yellowed letters. She revealed that Karen had, until last summer, been caught forging signatures to push through an unauthorized landscaping bylaw, punishable by a hefty fine. Her evidencia photograph of Karen's scrawled penmanship and notarized witness accounts spread like wildfire among the neighbors. Gasps rose and eyebrows arched in collective shock. Karen's eyes darted frantically, her practiced poise unraveling under the weight of this unexpected exposure. With each revelation, the crowd's support for her evaporated, replaced by murmurs of outrage over her deceit. My father, always the upholder of dignity, lowered his voice but not his firmness as he informed Karen that a formal investigation would commence due to allegations of forgery and abuse of position. Her breath hitched and sweat beaded at her hairline as she stumbled backward, her feet catching on the manicured lawn. The silent indictment from the community was louder than any prosecutor's gavel. As the sheriff's deputies gently guided Karen toward the cruiser, not in handcuffs but under a sense of enforced accountability, her ramrod posture sagged into defeat. She cast one last look at the mailbox whose neon hue now symbolized truth, memory, and the courage to stand up against tyranny. When the cruisers pulled away, the atmosphere shifted from tension to triumph. Neighbors approached, offering embraces and words of comfort, their eyes shining with solidarity. I felt a wave of gratitude toward my father and toward all those who had refused to let Karen's cruelty stand unchecked. In the soft glow of twilight, the mailbox's bright orange gleam felt like a beacon of victory, proof that justice could be personal and profound. In the final act, my father placed a steady hand on my shoulder and said, "You did the right thing." His words echoed through me like the last note of a hymn. Karen's collapse had been painful but necessary, her downfall paving the way for real community unity and compassion. As we shared a quiet moment on the porch, watching the horizon fade into an indigo sky, I realized that true strength lay not in wielding power, but in protecting what we love and standing up for what is right. Now I invite you to weigh in. Was Karen's reckoning justified? Or did my father's intervention cross the line between personal loyalty and professional duty? Share your thoughts, right or wrong. I stood in the stillness that followed Karen's departure, the orange mailbox now glowing brighter than ever under the porch light. My heart still throbbed with the adrenaline of victory, but a new wave of exhaustion washed over me as I realized the confrontation's ripple effects were just beginning. Neighbors who had once hidden behind their curtains now approached in small clusters, their hushed voices weaving together into a tapestry of solidarity. Mrs. Delgado, her gray curls catching the lamplight, pressed the stack of letters into my hands again, her eyes shining with relief. "You deserve this," she whispered, voice thick with emotion. The weight of those pages felt warm in my palm, a testament not only to Karen's deceit, but to the community's regained sense of justice. I nodded, mouthing a silent thank you, my gaze drifting to the horizon where the first stars peered through the indigo sky. In the days that followed, Maplewood Lane buzzed with renewed energy. The county's inquiry into Karen's forgery allegations unfolded with surprising speed. Deputies visited her home to collect further evidence. Neighbors provided testimonies, and within a week, she faced formal charges. Each development reverberated through the neighborhood like peals of thunder, a persistent reminder that abuse of power carries consequences. Yet for me, the real triumph lay in watching neighbors reclaim their agency. The Thompsons organized a weekend picnic by the cul-de-sac's communal green. Laughter mingled with the scent of grilled burgers, a once forbidden sign of carefree camaraderie. Mr. Liu reopened his front gate for the first time in months, welcoming passersby to admire his miniature Zen garden. Even the Petersons, who rarely looked up from their phones, ventured outside to engage in real conversation. It was as if Karen's shadow had finally lifted, allowing warmth to flood the street. I felt a quiet pride each time I walked past my mailbox. Neon orange had never seemed more vibrant, more full of life. When the postman commented, "That color grows on me," I laughed and replied softly, "It grows on all of us." My father and I shared a private joke. He would call to check in every night, ending with, "How's that mailbox of yours?" And I would promise to keep it bright. Yet his presence lingered beyond our calls. At family gatherings, his words about integrity and courage echoed in my mind, guiding me through neighborly disputes over fence heights and holiday decorations. Without realizing it, I had become an extension of his legacy, carrying the torch of fairness into realms he once patrolled. A week after the picnic, the HOA board held an emergency meeting to elect new officers. With Karen suspended pending legal proceedings, a slate of reform-minded candidates emerged. I received an unexpected invitation to speak, though I hesitated. Public speaking had never been my forte. On the long afternoon of the meeting, I stood before a semicircle of folding chairs, faces both familiar and apprehensive turned toward me. Silence stretched until I cleared my throat and said, "Thank you for allowing me to share." I spoke without notes, my voice steady as I recounted the events that had divided us and the lessons we had learned. That community thrives on respect, that rules serve people, not the other way around, and that courage sometimes means standing up to those closest to us. When I finished, applause rolled through the room like a wave, and I realized that Maplewood Lane had changed forever. In the aftermath, I agreed to join the board as a liaison for Neighborhood Unite, a role that felt both daunting and meaningful. Each time I drafted a newsletter or mediated a minor dispute, I remembered Karen's downfall as a cautionary tale. Power untempered by empathy leads to isolation. Authority wielded without transparency breeds resentment. I resolved to lead differently, to listen more than I spoke, to invite diverse voices to the table, and to treat each complaint as an opportunity for growth. My neighbors noticed the shift. When someone suggested a community garden, I helped organize volunteer days. When the church group sought permission for a food drive, I championed their cause. Slowly but surely, trust rebuilt itself around us like a living fence stronger than any wrought iron. Meanwhile, Karen faced her own reckoning. The local newspaper ran an exposé detailing her forged petitions and flimsy fines, painting a portrait of a woman who had elevated personal vendettas above communal welfare. Social media buzzed with comments ranging from schadenfreude to sympathy. Some wondered if mental health issues played a part. Others speculated about her past. I resisted the urge to gloat. Vengeance felt hollow once served. Instead, I focused on healing the rifts her behavior had caused, channeling the energy into positive action. When the county commissioner invited me to speak on a panel about civic engagement, I accepted, knowing that sharing Maplewood Lane's story might inspire other neighborhoods to reclaim their own sense of purpose. Over the next month, the investigation concluded with misdemeanor charges and a court-ordered mediation for the costs Karen's complaints had imposed on the HOA. She was required to attend community service and apologize to residents whose trust she had violated. The day she stood before us in the same community hall where I had spoken, her shoulders slumped, her voice quavering as she read a prepared statement. "I am sorry for letting my fear and pride hurt you all. I hope you can find it in your hearts to forgive me." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some accepted her apology. Others remained silent, but as I stepped forward to shake her hand, I felt a closure deeper than any legal verdict. Justice had been served, and yet compassion had found a place too. Life on Maplewood Lane settled into a new rhythm. The mailbox continued to shine its neon testament to memory and defiance, now sponsored by neighbors who volunteered to repaint it annually in honor of my mother. Children played freely in the cul-de-sac without fear of complaint, and adults greeted each other with genuine warmth. Each dawn, as the sunlight ignited the orange hue, I was reminded that even small acts like choosing a color carry meaning far beyond their appearance. One evening, as my father and I walked the quiet street, he rested his hand on my shoulder and said, "You turned a confrontation into a catalyst for change." I couldn't be prouder. I looked at him, at the badge on his uniform reflecting the streetlights, and replied, "I just followed your example." We paused before the mailbox, its neon glow mirrored in our eyes, and stood in companionable silence. HOA Karen's saga became more than gossip. It became a lesson in vigilance and unity, a story shared at block parties and county fairs, reminding everyone that power belongs to the people it serves, that community is a covenant of kindness, and that when injustice arises, ordinary citizens can summon extraordinary courage. Now that the dust has settled and life returns to its gentle hum, I leave you with this. Was it right for my father to intervene so personally in our community's affairs, or should I have faced Karen's challenge on my own? Share your verdict, right or wrong.